Okay, hi, my name's Beth Krutula. I'm the House Democratic leader, and we're here this morning for our press availability, the time when the House Democrats get together with the press to answer questions about session and also to put out a little bit about what we're thinking about it. With me today to my right is Representative Chris Tuck from Anchorage. He's our House Whip. And to my left is a gentleman who I've had the pleasure of working with for quite some time now, and the person who's our floor leader, Representative Max Grunberg, also of Anchorage. So thanks for joining me, both of you, this morning. We're headed toward an historic event. The Senate is queued up this morning to possibly take up an oil tax bill. And I think that every Alaskan should watch this, be concerned about it, and understand it to the best of your ability, because this is our future. We've been talking a bit about the history of oil taxes in Alaska, and I can tell you that I can't even tell you what round this is, because we keep repeating and repeating and repeating, and it seems sometimes that right when we're on the verge of true success, we're doing that grabbing, defeat out of our success. In Alaska, we know that we have tremendous barriers to entry on the North Slope for new corporations to come in, to actually see the production get into the pipeline and to market. And these barriers to entry and the frustrations for our new companies are what I believe is at the heart of our problem in Alaska. It's not about reducing a tax rate to where Alaskans suffer, all of us suffer. The new bill that's on the floor, if it is on the floor today, and I'm hoping it's not, I'm hoping the Senate backs up and takes a more thoughtful look at things, but it potentially takes $6 billion out of our revenues in 5 years. One of the senators has called this whole experiment a crapshoot. And that's not good enough for Alaskans. We've got to have the production. We've got to have the new entrants. We've got to see a vibrant oil industry for our state to succeed. But this isn't the way to do it. I want to close with just a short thing I heard on the radio the other day, and it really touched my heart. There is a documentary, took place in Portland, but it could just as well be Alaska. And there was a 13-year-old boy talking about the fact that his family had no savings. He had no money saved up for school, and that he was afraid for his future. He didn't know what was going to happen to him. And it's a documentary about poverty in America. And it struck me that if what we're going to do in this budget cycle is cut pre-K, cut our youngest Alaskans from getting a decent foundation to go into school, cut health and social services, then what we're doing is we're taking away the hope for our future for Alaska. So I feel strongly about this. I think that the governor's bill has gotten even worse, and that we cannot be giving away our resources. So with that, I want to turn to Representative Tuck, and then for a few moments to Representative Grunberg. Representative Tuck.
Thank you very much. We Alaskans all have the same wants and desires. We want to be able to provide for our families. We want to be able to raise our children and get them a decent education. We want to be able to have good benefits, and we want to be able to retire with dignity without being a burden on society. And I'm glad that our minority leader mentioned about the lack of hope that our future generations are having by not investing where we need to invest our dollars, and that is in our future generations. We need to make sure there's opportunities for them, economic opportunities, so they can provide for their families. And this is the reason why this is such an important decision. It's the reason why people are so passionate, is because this is the future of Alaska. Alaska, we finally got it right. Now, ACES isn't the has been a great fix. It's been a fantastic fix to the situation that we've had in the past. All we need to do is make it better. We don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater on this one. And the industry is always going to be coming back to us asking for more, asking for more, asking for more. And they're going to compare us to this state, to this country, to us around the world, and saying, in the name of competition, you need to give out more. And I will tell you that there are no amount of budget cutting that can offset the multi-billion-dollar giveaway that's happening right now. We can't. And we need to invest in new industries. So, we all have to face it. We rely on oil. We rely on production for our economy, for our state government, and for planning for our future. And but we need to be able to start diversifying now. And if we don't get our fair share, we will lose those opportunities in being able to diversify our economy. So that's the reason why this is such an important decision. You know, the House Democrats combined with the Senate Democrats, we have a great proposal that we put forward. And basically, we will give reduction if we have production. There are guarantees there. We have definitions for new oil. And that's some of the biggest problems that we're having right now, seeing the Senate version coming over, is that they have not had that defined, and they're just going to leave it up to, you know, some other people to try to figure out. That's our responsibility to do that here. And, you know, I'm concerned about the future of Alaska. That's the reason why I'm here. I believe that we need to have a vision for the state, and when you don't have a vision for the state of Alaska, that's when opportunities slip through your fingers, and we just need to be able to focus on what will provide for families and give hope for our future.
Thank you. Representative Grunberg.
Thank you. It's nice to be here this morning. And I'd just like to focus on one thing that the governor said. He said on Monday that state government does not need more money now, nor does it need higher government spending. What we need is more economic opportunity for Alaskans. We do have a lot of needs in our state. And the leaders have just said that we need to have better education for our people. We need to have better health care for our people. We need to have better business opportunities for Alaskans, small businesses. We need to open up our transportation. Our roads need to be improved. The railroad needs to be improved. The ferry system needs to be improved. The people who don't really have the need are the oil companies who have record profits. And our job and what we've been elected to do is to protect you, to protect the public, to protect Alaskans. And we'd like to work in a partnership with the oil companies, but it's got to be a real partnership, not taking away from our people to give to outside corporations.
Okay. We're open for questions. Thank you very much, Representative Grunberg. Adam.
Yeah, Adam Pinsker with KTUU. Just in seeing the sort of the close vote over in the Senate and some of the amendments and substitutes that have been made to this bill, what does it have you all thinking on the House side? I mean, do you think that'll affect how the vote on this bill goes in the House?
So the question is, watching the Senate and the closeness, obviously, of the discussion on the oil tax there, what does that mean for the House? You know, I think when I came in at the beginning of session, I thought that this was going to be a monolithic House. You see 30 to 10 and you start thinking, wow, that's really outnumbered. But what I've seen in the last couple of weeks are growing questions and concerns, and it's not a monolithic wall in the House. I think that this issue is much more about Alaska than it is about a party, right? I know people on both sides of this issue going all the way back to statehood about who's standing up and saying we've got to see our resource controlled by Alaskans returning a revenue to Alaska. So I have hope, but right now that critical moment is going to be in the Senate, and I'm very concerned about it, but I'm also have hope, that we'll see change before the bill comes back to the House. Representative Tuck?
Yeah, thank you. It just shows that we're all over the place right now, and this bill should not be rushed. This is not a rushed decision. We need to take time and do it right.
Right. The questions? Pat?
If this bill passes, where should the lost revenue be made up? I think we've got individual taxes, we've got spending cuts, we've got taking out of savings. Where should the $1 billion come from? And help me answer the question, not which of those is the worst, but which one of those should the cuts come from?
So the question is really a no-win situation, right? Where should you cut if you're going to lose, billions of dollars over a 5-year period? And that's the problem, right? Why should we have to make that cut when in reality there's no good reason for it? And I think Representative Tuck had the answer in his early statement, which is you can't make up a cut like that. I mean, that's when we're going to see those 13-year-olds saying, I don't have a future. My family can't pay for electricity. I saw yesterday Not just the 13-year-old. Yesterday, I talked to a leader of a village corporation. They're coming through the building, and of course, we're seeing the ANCSA leaders today. And this young woman had a picture of elders in Calskag who couldn't get running water for their toilets. These are toilets that DEC, our department, our state put in, and they weren't working. So she was personally trying to raise money so that they could have water for their toilets. Can you imagine an elder going down to get water in these big old buckets? That's the shape we're in now. Can you imagine what happens if we cut those billions of dollars out of our budget? That's not right. And I'm not going to think that way. I'm optimistic about Alaska. I'm optimistic about our chances to get production if we do it smart, if we do it right, if we don't back up and just say, oh, well, we're going to have a crapshoot. We're just going to let the oil companies go do anything they want to. That isn't my Alaska, and that's not where we're going to go as House Democrats.
Could I say something?
Yes, Max, sorry.
Pat, that's a great question. And I think you need to ask that to the folks who want to cut the budget. You know, if you want to give this money away to the oil companies, do you want to take the safe drinking water and the safe sewage system away from the villages? By the way, all the time you're cutting their representation here in the state legislature. That's not right. That's not what we stand for. Those are life and health issues. And we don't think that we should be cutting these folks' budget, these Alaskans' budget, our budget, just to give the oil companies a little extra profit for their bottom line.
Alexandra? Sorry.
Alexandra Gutierrez, APRN. You all have spoken about the audits on numerous occasions. We've seen requests come from Senator Bill Wielechowski and Senator Berta Gardner. And in the House, we've also seen both Representatives Lusker and Scott Kawasaki also make information requests to the governor. Once a bill moves to the House, should we expect to see more of that push from you all?
So the question is about the audits. And Representative Guerra and Scott Kawasaki, Berta Gardner, and Wielechowski, senators in the Senate, obviously, asking for the information. You know, one of the real sad situations that we're in at this point is we're being asked to make this momentous. I mean, it's hard to even, say how important a decision this is with an absolute lack of knowledge. How can we be asked to make a decision like this where we have no guarantees, we have no information, we don't have access to consultants, and we don't have even the fundamentals of how ACES is doing because we don't have the audits yet. I mean, Representative Grunberg and I are lawyers, and if you were in a court and you tried to ask a judge to make a decision like that with that lack of evidence, they'd just laugh you out of the courtroom. And we're sort of in the court of the public right now, and the public should be outraged that we're being asked to give up our revenue, our resource under our Constitution that was given to us to build this state. We should be outraged that we're being asked to do this without that lack of information. So yeah, you're going to see a lot more talk about exactly that issue.
And I'd just like to add that, we've gone 6-7 years under ACES and not had an audit yet on the industry. And I think that's another piece of information. Before we make any changes, let's know how we're doing. Let's know what's been successful. Let's know where we need to make adjustments.
Representative Grunberg.
I'd just like to repeat one figure that I think Chris mentioned earlier, and I can refer you folks to this. It's in the fiscal note for Senate Bill 21, fiscal note number 6, signed by the commissioner, approved by the Commissioner of Revenue, dated March 14. And on the bottom of page 4 out of 5, it shows that this oil tax proposal will cost the state $6 billion over 5 years, regardless of even without any further audits. That should cause Alaskans great concern because we have a real need and real good uses for those figures. Also, when we can't get an audit, the question must be asked, why aren't they giving us the audits?
I guess
Follow-up, Alexander?
And I guess what sort of reaction have you been getting from the administration, and have you gotten any sort of further feedback in recent days?
No. In fact, I don't think Representative Guerra has gotten a response yet to his question about consultants. And, that's a key. Why aren't we getting access to people so that we do have what their side of the story is? And that alone makes you question what the reality is.
And I want to add that I asked 20 questions written out to Department of Revenue, and that was on February 22nd, waiting for those 20 questions to waiting for the response to those 20 questions. They did acknowledge that they got the email, and so we're just waiting.
Adam?
Just on that topic, I spoke on the phone with the Deputy DOR Commissioner, Bruce Tanningman. He said that I guess they've been in the process of auditing the last 6 years of capital expenditures up there, but it's taken a while because of changes to ACEs and various regulations. Is that an explanation that he gave to you as well? Or?
You can't ask Alaskans to give up $6 billion in 5 years without showing us why we need to do it. We can't have the co-chair of Senate Finance saying it's a crapshoot, the details are foggy, and have us be expected to take a vote on something that's going to be this important. So, I've heard that kind of talk before, but why on earth aren't we getting these audits so that we can see the truth of the matter? Some of us went into a profits tax with a lot of trepidation. I've talked about this a couple of times, Representative Crawford and myself in particular. But we did it, and we did it because Sarah Palin brought in consultants. She let us have access to them. They came and met with us individually and as a group, and we went ahead and did it. And that tax has proven out for Alaskans. We are not in a recession because of it. Now what we're being asked to do is to give up billions of dollars without any evidence that it's going to give us any production. It's not right, and it's not right for Alaska's future. I don't want to have those 13-year-old children saying, I don't have any hope because my parents can't get jobs, because they can't afford the energy, because my grandmother doesn't have a working toilet that the state built for her and now it won't work. It's things like this that, I'm really passionate about this morning, and it finally struck me that we've got to all stand up as Alaskans and say no to this giveaway. We cannot let this happen to us. So I'm really beseeching everyone, to speak up against this. Max.
I think it's true that throughout the state, certainly speaking personally, when I went door to door in my district during the election, the one issue almost every person at the door was united on was that they didn't like House Bill 110, the last giveaway, which would have been $10 billion, $2 billion a year, $20 billion over 10 years. Only 2 people said to me that they supported it. And one of those people jokingly said, "You probably guess for whom I work." He was with the oil companies. And that's legitimate for them to take that position. But they must recognize the overwhelming feeling of non-confidence that Alaskans have, not only in that legislation itself, but in the process. And the question is, who do these people really represent? Now's the time when we cannot have divided loyalties. We can only serve one master, and that's the voter.
Adam?
Yeah, just to follow up on something you said, Representative Petula, on the difference. Why is there such a difference in transparency with the consultants between the Palin administration and this administration?
I don't understand it. I don't understand why we're not having world experts like the people we were talking to when we put in ACEs, and why they aren't openly in the building. My father talks a lot about how the initial, when we initially formed the state and we selected Prudhoe, and then we had to come up with our strategy on how to handle that resource, and how they had the Brookings Institute, they had many other experts here to help them make those kinds of decisions. And again, with the permanent fund, they just had a wonderful program on, here, Senator Stevens organized the 100-year anniversary of the legislature, and we got to see some of the people that really helped found this state and found, our initial systems. We're just being asked to do this in the dark. So here we are, in a crapshoot, in the dark, being asked to give away billions. And as an Alaskan, I am offended by that. Chris, did you want to?
I just want to add that one piece of information we have been getting over the years is that investment is rising on the North Slope.
That's right.
I mean, we've been hearing that from the Department of Revenue over the last 5 or 6 years, and all investment leads to production. And I just want to quote what William Armstrong said just a year ago. He said, "The least controversial and best long-term solution for increasing Alaska's tax revenues is developing the state's smaller oil fields." And that's what we need to do. We cannot rely on the old dogs anymore. We need to get new investors up there, and that's what we've successfully done over the last 5 or 6 years. We need to continue along that path. We don't need to pull the rug out of underneath these guys. We need to make sure they're successful. And pulling those tax credits does nothing more but eliminate the competition for the old dogs. We need to have more competition up there, not less.
Pat?
Somebody had put in a request for Anthony Klein. Was that you guys?
Yes, it was.
What do you
Les.
expect them to say?
We've been asking. I think that Representative Guerra has asked twice. And
To say if they were to.
what do I expect them to say?
Yeah.
I expect them to say similar from what they said when they spoke with us under Sarah Palin, which is, hey, this profits tax is perfectly workable, but you've got to have the production and you've got to incentivize it. And that was, in a nutshell, some of what they said then.
And a related question, a lot of the ACES plan included the use of tax credits to incentivize production. The governor gets rid of those. Now he's also saying that SB 21 will create new jobs. How many new jobs do you have to create to make up for those? How does that net out to you?
You want to answer that, Chris?
Well, it's a question that the proposal as it stands right now is going to get us more production, and it's a question of whether or not it's going to create more jobs. I mean, it's all on a hope and a prayer. So there's nothing definitive that we can look to say, yes, this will work. What we do have is a 6-year past history of ACES and creating more jobs. We have record employment up on the North Slope, more than we've ever seen. As a matter of fact, they're building more man camps. They're building a 5,000 man camp at the old Prudhoe Bay airport due to the fact that there's just not enough bed space up there. So we are seeing more activity up there. We are seeing aggressive drilling schedules that are taking place, and there's just not enough drillers and enough drilling rigs. And so we need to keep going forward with what we have.
If there's not a question in the room, I want to just ask Mike Mason, who's out in Dillingham. Mike, do you have any questions this morning?
Well, I think you might have already addressed this, but I'll ask it again.
Sure.
What tool would the House Democrats like to use or authorize to be used to actually spur increased exploration and development? And is tax policy an appropriate tool to use?
Thank you for that question. So the question is, what would we do? And that's a great question. We put in a bill, House Bill 111, and asked for a hearing. It's going on, I think, a month ago now. And we built it around the belief that you've got to have production and you've got to support new entrants, but you've got to do it in a smart way. So I think Representative Tuck spoke a little bit about it. You're right. But we have absolute plans of development so that we know our oil isn't warehoused. We allow for state investment, but we do it in a wise way. We have new fields, but we only give them that credit for 7 years. So we don't have this terrible situation that's in the current Senate bill where you may, who knows how we're going to define new oil. And it could go on forever. So you're giving up money for no purpose, right? You have possibly oil that would have been developed anyway, and you're giving it a credit. That's historic in Alaska. We made that mistake. We don't need to do it again. And we also put in allowances for new production facilities. So we know the problems of the North Slope. We know the barriers to access. And why we're not going after those barriers to access for the new, smaller companies, just as Representative Tuck was saying, is really a big problem for me. Why don't we back up? Why don't we take on those tough questions? Why don't we open up the secrecy of this whole situation? Why don't we get the new companies in? And why don't we say, what are the things you need to be successful, although we know most of them? And why don't we do those things rather than turning toward taking Alaska's resources away from Alaskans first? That's what troubles me so terribly this morning. Well, Chris?
And I'm proud that we have some non-taxable incentives that we're doing, not incentives, but ways of bringing more production. That is low-interest loans through ADA, 1% loans to make those available for production facilities at those no oil fields, so we get more production. I mean, it's all about new production. It's not all about taxing and crediting. We're offering low-interest loans because we know it takes huge investments. It takes years before you can get that down the line, so we're going to invest in that now. We can't wait anymore.
I have nothing to add.
Okay. Anything else in the room? Anything more, Mike?
I would ask if you are looking forward, anybody on the panel, if you're looking forward to actually being able to address questions to industry representatives once or if this particular bill makes it to the House of Representatives. I watched the Senate Finance hearing where they actually posed direct questions to the industry representatives, and it was apparent they didn't get the answers they were looking for. Are you looking forward to that same opportunity?
This isn't the first time we've been around this cycle. And while I'd like to be optimistic and say, yeah, that'd be a great opportunity, and I'll look forward to those oil industry execs giving us the straight story on why they're not producing Alaska, why they've been warehousing, why they harvest, why they oppose entrance into the pipeline for the new guys. I'm not holding my breath on getting any straight answers on that. But, Representative Grunberg said something that's true. You can't fault the companies. The companies are about their shareholders. The companies are about people who invest in them. They are not about Alaska. Now, they need Alaska mightily, but we have to be just as strong-willed as they are. We have to be willing to stand up and say, we have to put Alaskans first. We can't cut our way into the future. I mean, Governor Hickel taught us that, and it's true today as it was then. We've got to figure out a way to see that the companies do well and the small companies, the people that we have to have for our future, come in and are giving new production into the line. But I don't expect those answers to come from the companies. Those have to come from us. And as one of your leaders, I'm just tremendously proud of my own caucus. I'm tremendously proud of the people from the other side of the aisle who are saying, wait a minute, we can't act so fast. To take a crapshoot on something this important is not right for Alaskans. So with that, I want to thank everybody for being here. Max, would you like? Sure.
Just one other thing. That last question really puts this whole process right where it ought to be. In the minority, as Democrats, we can ask questions, but we don't run the show. People, Alaskans, need to ask their senators and representatives to ask these questions. But equally importantly, it's you folks in the press, the Fourth Estate, who need to ask the tough questions, because you can get answers sometimes when it's difficult for us. We need your help. We need everybody's help to get these answers so we can do the right thing for Alaska.
Representative Tuck?
Yeah, I'll just add that, we need to negotiate from, this is a negotiations process. This is what it is. It's negotiations from the state of Alaska, for the people of Alaska, on behalf of the people of Alaska, with the oil industry and to their shareholders. And so we need to negotiate that from a position of strength, not from a position of weakness. And bottom line, no reduction without production. That should be our negotiating, that should be our bottom line right there in our negotiation process. No reduction without production.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us. If you have questions, you want to email us, you want to call us, we encourage you to do that. But most importantly, speak up. Speak up about this. Don't let your future be sold away in a terrible, terrible giveaway of our state resource. Thank you.